If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction. Don't Hide the Scars, a weekly podcast focused on addiction and recovery. Created by the nonprofit PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, and founded by Flindt Andersen.
Welcoming to Don't Hide the Scars, Lisa Smittcamp, Fresno County District Attorney, as well as Dino Cee, Fresno Police Department, part of the F.O.R.T Division, which is the Fentanyl Overdose Resolution Team. Thank you for joining us. This is a serious area that we wanted to get into. And Flindt, where did you want to start? Because you had so many different things that you wanted to talk to these folks about.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining us. These are two of my favorite people in the entire world, and they put their heart and soul and lives, into what they do and helping this community with the fentanyl crisis and the opioid crisis and every crisis, that we deal with here. And I have nothing but respect for these folks. But I would kind of like to start out with just talking about the overdose scene, so to speak, right now, where we're at. Are we seeing increases? Are we seeing decreases? What is going out? What's going on out there?
We're seeing hills and valleys. Some weeks we don't have any overdoses or overdose deaths, and then we'll have a month like this past month where we've had 11 overdoses and several deaths. So it's peaks and valleys. It hasn't stopped. It's the issue that we're seeing now is the Narcan issue. Obviously, Narcan reverses the effects of an opioid overdose. But what we're hearing now and what we're seeing now, especially in our younger kids, is that they're doing what's called the buddy system or the wingman system. So, for example, myself and one of my friends order up an M30 pill or fentanyl. We decide today it's my turn to watch my friend. If he goes down or overdoses, I administer Narcan to him, and then he comes back. Well, unfortunately, what's happening now is that they're not calling 911. They're not seeking medical attention, which you're supposed to do after you experience an opioid overdose and you administer Narcan, and they're not doing that. And we need to tell, especially young adults, that if you do administer Narcan, that you do need to call 911, that you do need to seek medical attention. You do need to go to the hospital. Yeah. And it's so important that, you can administer Narcan and then not seek medical attention and then overdose again or go to sleep or not wake up. So it's important that we get that message out.
Yeah, there's a real conception that it's some kind of fix-all, and it is not. Yeah. It is just we are trying to sustain you long enough so that you can get that medical attention, but there's a serious process that needs to be taken by medical professionals after Narcan is administered.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely need to call 911. They definitely need to go to the hospital. They definitely need to see a doctor and get medically cleared through the hospital or medical doctor. Because you can overdose again.
The problem, Jason, is that the people who are doing this and participating in this kind of behavior, their number one goal every day is to get high and to protect their addiction. Right. So they don't care. Yeah. They're already willing to risk their lives and their bodies for that high or for that need that they have. And so I think that, that was one of the things when I got involved with all of these things and, dealing with the different sort of aspects of law enforcement versus the health department, the recovery, community, and people really wanting for law enforcement to push the use of Narcan and to encourage people to use Narcan. And it's sort of a double-edged sword for us, because when you encourage people to use Narcan, you have an sort of spoken acceptance of the use. Mm-hmm. And from a law enforcement perspective, and from, I always say my second job is being the DA, my first job is being a mom. And when I think of that, and I've had people in my family who've had addictions, it's very difficult to encourage that use. We do because it's a life-saving technique. But,
sure.
For people that are listening to this podcast, that have family members that are addicted, you know, the Narcan, if you see any Narcan, if you never see any drugs, but you see that your loved one or your kid that has Narcan around, that's a huge warning sign. And the issue is they not only need medical treatment right after they use the Narcan, because either they will go into withdrawal or they could potentially still overdose if that, you know, they use again or there's enough in their system. But they also need treatment. Yeah. And so there's a longer process than just, you know, grabbing some Narcan and saving someone's life.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing with Narcan is that a lot of times we don't talk about the people that overdosed and survived. You know, that's something that we're not talking about. But what we're trying to do now with Dr. Vora and his team is, with the treatment center that I have, we are trying to set up, put things in place to where when somebody overdoses, that they're going to be able to be given our name and other treatment centers' names, so we can get to them immediately. That we can actually go and meet them where they're at. We could possibly start the detox process within a day of them coming out of the hospital, which is going to save a whole bunch of lives here, I think.
Yeah, great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully. I mean, that's the goal. That's the tough thing, though, too, because we can't force them to go.
Nope.
And you know, it's kind of us here, our mission, the more that we can actually educate people. But how are you folks within your positions able to really educate the public a little bit more? Or are you seeing some constraints?
Well, Dean's looking at me because that's sort of the role that I have. With the weakening of the criminal justice system and the weakening of the laws in California, prosecutors and police officers on the street are pretty much hamstrung. Yeah. Because even when we do get people who are, you know, arrested, or we have a good case where we catch people with dope or even dope and guns and we can prosecute them, the laws, because of the things that have changed over the last 5 to 10 years, are very weak. So the penalties are very weak. So what I have chosen to do in my capacity as district attorney is really take on the education and awareness, right, part of it, and not so much, I mean, don't get me wrong, if we can prosecute a case, we do. But we are really trying to educate that sector of the population that has yet to be exposed to this, right? And yes, of course, the people who are currently involved in it or using it or their family members are using it, we have to address them too. But for the people that have not yet used it or don't know about it, that's a huge part of it. So we have a billboard campaign that we started about 2 years ago, which has been extremely effective. Dino and I are like a 25-cent dog and pony show. If you give us a quarter and a bottle of water, we will show up at your school and talk to teachers, students, assemblies, anybody that will listen. We will talk to. I mean, we've done things with 5 to 10 kids, 50 kids, or 500 kids. Yeah. And so we do that. We try to go out and make the community aware. We're very lucky to have really good media partners, podcasts like this. Flint's been a great partner. ABC 30's been a great partner. Fenceline Media, Fresno County Office of Ed. We're all kind of trying to work together. And then, of course, the health department and the Department of Behavioral Health in the county have been tremendous partners in assisting us. Yeah. And we're all sort of addressing whatever sector of the population that is relevant to us. So we can sort of do this whole wraparound and get people, either prevent them from using, educate them about that, or help them if they are addicted.
Yeah. You know, we learned early on that this is an actual terrorist attack on our kids, right? They know exactly the target our market to get young addicts, especially fentanyl addicts, addicted to this fentanyl. Lisa and I recognized immediately, right from the get-go, is the only way we're going to slow down this poisoning of our kids is getting out there on podcasts, to get out there and speak, at the schools, to get out there and speak with the local leaders here in Fresno, to let them know what's going on with our kids and how the age where this is starting. You know, my youngest victim was 13, right, and it still continues to be the age group of 13, 14, 15, 16. The oldest usually being about 25, but the only way we're going to slow this down is getting out here and educating our kids and getting the message out, obviously, about the Narcan and the dangers of fentanyl. But it all starts with the vaping and the THC and getting them hooked on that, and then transitioning into the fentanyl. Yeah,
because the THC we're seeing now isn't the stuff when I was. Granted, I never used marijuana when I was a teenager, but it's not what it was when we were younger.
No, not
And
at
we're
all. In
seeing
fact,
that.
we're seeing psychotic breaks with marijuana more than we've ever seen before, just because the potency is so high.
Well, you go back to the thing about what we've done with our laws in California, right? We just opened our first dispensaries in Fresno, right? And California has them all over the place, and everyone's so excited about legalized marijuana because it helps people that are in need of medical issues. And there is a population of those people who legitimately need it for medical purposes, and I think they can get it from their doctors. So this whole, but that's another story.
That's a whole other podcast.
The whole issue of accepting marijuana, is as a rite of passage, or just something that every kid does. Those days are over. Right? And you know what I say to people who are 50 years old and they're successful and they have businesses and families and white picket fences and the puppy behind the fence wagging their tail when they come home from their, $250,000 job and they get out of their Tesla and they say, "Oh, I smoked pot all through high school." And I say, "Lucky you."
Right. Yeah.
Because you're one of the lucky ones. Right. Because I have yet in 27 years in this business ever talked to an addict, whether they've been somebody who's been an armed robber, a domestic violence abuser, a child abuser, or a murderer who's had a drug addiction and has killed somebody in the process of a theft or a rage, not be a person who started off their addictive disorder with marijuana.
Every single one of us.
One.
Every single.
Absolutely.
That's how I started.
Not one.
You start with alcohol normally, and then you start with pot, and then it just progresses from there. The one thing I did want to mention was, and I know we talk about this a lot, is the fact that these kids don't know that fentanyl is in these pills. That's been sort of the saying that we've kind of worked around the last year or so.
Not anymore.
But not anymore. These kids know exactly what fentanyl is. They know what that M30 pill is. Mm-hmm. They know that the shape, the color, the stamp M30 on it. And they're still willing to take that chance for a couple of reasons. One, Superman complex. This is never going to happen to me. Then, of course, the parents chime in. It's never going to happen to my child. But when a parent says, well, my kid doesn't know there's fentanyl in these. Well, of course they do. Right? I mean, and especially if now you become dependent on that drug, you know damn well that there's fentanyl in that thing, and you're still going to take the chance to use it anyway because you have to maintain that high and that feeling, or else, like we all know, you're going to get dope sick.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised, top-quality care with programs for detox, inpatient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living, support groups, and more. With 50-plus years of combined experience and sobriety, Flindt, Andersen, and Thelma Gatlin Wilson provide adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect, and a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery. To proudly create and sustain a life without addiction, call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
Flindt, we all of us who were teenagers 100 years ago and who have teenagers know this is age old. This is the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't care when it was. All teenagers are risk takers. Everyone. I have a son who is peanut allergic. We've known since he was 6 months old. And, we have the EpiPen in the house and all those things. Now, when he started to go to school, it was terrifying for me because, kids have peanut butter and jelly. And so we've gone through this whole thing. Now he is 15 years old. And my allergist, who's a dear friend, said to me, "Lisa, I have kids who are also peanut and nut allergic. Just get ready. When he gets to be a teenager, he's going to start to test it. And I said, "Oh no, you don't know my kid. He's like me. He's paranoid. He's scared because if anybody had a peanut butter sandwich when he was in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, he'd get up and walk across the room. Right. He was deathly afraid of peanut butter. The other day in my house, somebody brought in peanut butter pretzels, and I said, "Oh no, we don't, because we don't have peanut butter in our house." Right. And he was messing with me and the peanut butter was enclosed inside the pretzel, but he was tossing it up and pretending he was going to put it in his mouth. Just to get a rise out of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to get a rise out of me. He would have never done that.
Mess with Mom.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's his hobby. But and of course I reacted, and of course all the peanut pretzels went out into the trash can.
Right.
But that's what they do.
Right.
Teenagers
They take chances.
test the waters, and they're normal. It's normal behavior for them to do it.
Right.
It's just this is a deadly risk that they're taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Lisa said, we all made mistakes as kids, right? We all messed up. But today, you cannot afford to make a mistake, right? If you take this one pill, it could cost you your life, right? And that's one of the things that we discuss when we go out to these homes, especially with parents and the kids, that you can't afford to make a mistake today, because eventually it's going to probably wind up taking your life or overdosing.
A parent just can't say, a kid's going to be a kid. We got through it. We did it. No, today it's going to kill you, and it's going to kill you quickly.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And parents, and it's so hard getting that across to parents these days.
Yeah.
They want to think everything's just normal, and it's just not.
One other thing I want to mention, too, is, I've been out to some houses where the parents kind of condone the use of marijuana. It's only marijuana. They do it in the backyard.
Right.
It's about educating, and I educate the parents also on the use of marijuana and why it's different today. The THC levels are a lot higher today, especially in the THC vape pens, right?
Yeah.
Where it is 40, 50, 60% THC resin. It's like almost smoking like 20 joints after you take that one puff of a vape, of a THC vape. So it's educating the parents, because they've been kind of numb about this medical marijuana use, and it's not that bad for kid. Well, I'm here to tell you it is bad, especially on adolescent brains. Where you're 14 and 15. Kids are not supposed to be ingesting that much THC into their system, because it causes a whole other bunch of issues. And now we're starting to see with these vapes and these THC pens that where I'm seeing where kids are actually having double lung transplants, right? Because of the amount of THC resin that's getting attached to the lung walls, and their lungs are collapsing. So it brings a whole host of other medical issues with the vaping, and then not to include, but the use of the pills, the Xanax and the M30 pills. It's a progression into the harder drugs, and getting out there and educating the public and telling the parents it's not okay for your kids to smoke marijuana.
You just said so much right there, Dino, but it's almost like I think that we have to do some sort of campaign in order to reach more parents, because I always go back to, and I'm gonna say it. It was a Clovis Unified School. This is a number of years ago that and by the way, the school helped us get this set up for a parent meeting. That we came in, we were going to talk to the parents. They sent emails home. They sent physical things home, letting them know that this was going to happen. And we had 2 parents show up.
We've had that happen to us.
Right.
People no-show.
Yeah.
Just no show. And I've beaten my head against the wall for so many years on how do we get parents, or how do we get in front of these parents? And my only thought here is that we have to have the schools helping us with this, and I don't know how they make it mandatory, but something has to be done so we can get in front of these parents.
It's funny you say that, because here's the thing. Those of us in law enforcement, we do the same thing that you're doing in addictive recovery services, is we say, let's go to the schools, right? Let's go to the schools. Let's go to the schools. And the schools are so overwhelmed. The teachers are so overwhelmed. The administrators are so overwhelmed. They don't have to teach English and math, just English and math anymore.
Right.
They have to teach social and emotional learning. They have to feed the kids. They have to be their school psychologists and make sure they have their shots. And I mean, the burden that is on these administrators and teachers today is overwhelming, but it is our best source of information spreading and information sharing. And so we do rely on them. And we are so fortunate here in Fresno County to have such a great partnership with Jim Yavino, who's the current superintendent of Fresno County Schools, and the person who's taking over for him will be Michelle Cantwell-Kofer, and she's also going to be a great partner. What we are so excited about, Dino and I have sort of made it a mission that we want to have Narcan in all the schools.
You bet.
And show documentaries and get in to speak to all the schools. And just about 2 weeks ago, maybe, or a week ago, I said this. I had the same conversation with Jim. I said, Jim Yavino, you're going out. I said, you're retiring, and your legacy could be to make sure that it is mandatory. And he said, I can't make it mandatory, but I can certainly encourage.
But
and
why
sure
ca-
enough, Well, because there's just every school has their, some of the schools are unified school districts and some are county schools, and there's different jurisdictions, and getting principals to get on board when they're overwhelmed with poverty and they're overwhelmed with kids who are coming to school without shoes and empty bellies. It's a lot for them. So he got together with Dr. Vora, and they did get every principal in Fresno County Office of Ed schools, including the parochial and private schools, to agree to put Narcan on their campuses. And so they have a supply now, because a lot of it was like, hey, where do we get it? Well, go here or go there, but they're doing it now in mass. And everybody is on board. And I say kudos to F.O.R.T, kudos to Flindt, kudos to whoever has participated in this education and awareness campaign, because now the principals, because principals aren't different than parents, they have 100,000 things on their plate. And they think, oh, fentanyl is not a problem here in our country school, or fentanyl is not a problem in our geographic area of Fresno. But now they're knowing that it is. And so this starting school year, all of the high school campuses will have Narcan on the campus.
That's fantastic, because we were talking to Randy the other day. Yeah, he's another gentleman that's he's got like 38 years of recovery. He does what I do, but he does it in Florida. And we were talking about, because when we were talking, we basically have the same speech no matter where we go. He's just doing it in Florida, and I'm doing it out here. But I asked him, I said, "Are you still speaking at high schools?" And he said, "No." He said, "I'm not." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Simply because every high school, at least in the state of Florida, they want us to soften our speech so much that we can't get anything across to these kids, let alone the parents." And I'm so happy to hear about Jim and doing that. But
Dino, remember the first conversation we had with one of the educators? He said, "Well, I don't want to scare the kids, because that's their nature. They're teachers. They're nurturers." And Dino and I said, what do we say? Yeah. We will. Yeah. Right. We'll scare them. Yeah, we'll scare them.
We'll scare them. Absolutely. These principals and these administrators and these teachers they're the odds are against them, right? When you can show up to school with your cell phone, on. When you can show up to school with a vape pen, when you can show up to school with an M30 pill, and they're ordering up this stuff in school, what is the principals supposed to do, right? We have a lot of proactive principals that realize that and know that, right? And the vaping that's going on in the high schools, and it's very difficult for today for a principal or administrator to understand that. And one of the things that Lisa and I do, and whether I have 2 people or 4 people, sure, I like to have a whole auditorium full of people. But if I get the message out to just a couple of parents on the dangers of this stuff, and going and doing presentations in the beginning of the school, and letting the administrators and the teachers know what to look for in their students, right? Because vaping goes on inside the schools. Right. They wear the hooded sweatshirts and they pull it over their head and they vape inside their sweatshirts. It's occurring in the classrooms. Letting the teachers know, hey, this is what you need to look for. This is the signs that something is going on with this kid in this particular classroom, and try to intervene and try to do something right away about it instead of waiting.
Yeah.
Right. Did I tell you the one that I never heard of this before? But they're taking the strings from their hoodies and they're dipping it in wax. So as they're sitting in the classroom, they're just sucking on that string, like every kid does, and that's just another way for them to use inside the classroom.
Yeah. Well, and the candy fentanyl is on the way.
That one just
the candy fentanyl's on the way too. It's in California. Thankfully, we haven't seen it in Fresno yet, but it's on the way.
It's on the way.
We have not. Yeah, no, we've got a report of some candy fentanyl on the coast area, and this just goes to show you the target market, right? Yep. What's the intention of making candy fentanyl if you're not targeting the young folks, our kids, right? Yep. And it just goes to show you that's exactly their target market, right? And now it's getting to the point now where they're making the fentanyl a lot stronger. These pills are a lot stronger, right? And the reason why they're doing that is because they know kids are getting addicted. You're building a tolerance up for this fentanyl, right? So you have to make it stronger so the kids seek it out more. Yep. Right? It just goes to show you that that's their plan. That's why they're doing it.
And your data of overdose alone shows exactly who they're marketing. You said 13 to 25.
Absolutely.
That is the range of a not fully developed adult brain.
That's right.
And weren't we talking at one time, you said something that just clicked in my brain about fentanyl being stronger because it's made in the lab. We can make it as strong as we want.
Sure, it's synthetic.
That's right. That's why heroin, I believe, is at some point going to go by the wayside because you still have to grow it and cultivate it and ship it and do all those things. But,
drug cartels know the progression. They know that if you do survive this, you're going to get addicted to it, and they want to make it stronger so they have more long-term customers. Yeah. That's what it comes right down to.
They're creating their own market.
Absolutely.
You bet. Yeah. Do you guys actually think, because I know we've had this discussion, I've had this discussion with several other people back in Washington, D.C., about the fact that China, some people actually believe that China, this is their covert war against us. And I'm just interested to get your opinion on that because we as a society, we make up 5% of the world's population. We're using 99% of the world's Vicodin supply. We use 81% of the world's Percocet supply, oxycodone. Now, I don't know where we're at with fentanyl yet because there's no real numbers on that. But when you look at a society that's using that many opioids, I got to believe that somewhere down the line, China's going, aha, they're just kind of licking their chops at us. What do you think?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because you know what? As Americans, we are all sort of spoiled, right?
Bet.
And I don't care if you're living at the poverty line or you're the richest person in the world economically and where your socioeconomic status is. We live in a very... we live in a society where we don't like to be uncomfortable. Right. We don't like to be in pain. We don't like to have any discomfort, And when I was pregnant with my first child, I went to prenatal yoga. And the lady there, who was the teacher, said, when your body is in pain during labor, that's what's supposed to happen. And it lasts for a very brief period of time. You have a 2-minute contraction. You have a 3-minute contraction. So we're going to teach you how to breathe and put your body into the shape that you may get through labor without any drugs, to be able to deliver naturally, because that is what your body is supposed to do during that time period, right? But we don't like pain as Americans, so we take drugs. If your body is in pain, there's something wrong.
Right.
You have something wrong with an organ. You have something wrong with a limb or whatever. And look at how many people have cancer for years and years, and they don't even know it. And then they get the diagnosis, they're stage 4. Well, and then you find out, they were in pain for all these years. But what'd they do? They took Vicodin. Right. They took prescriptions. Mm-hmm. They did over-the-counter stuff to try to alleviate that pain. And they don't address the core problem. Right. And the same exact thing is happening with addiction. We are just covering our pain. And for people like me who don't like politics, I know it's funny that you say that because I have to run for my job. I have to be an elected official. The politics from Washington, D.C. to Sacramento to the dais in Fresno County or Fresno City affect all of this.
Yep.
Because these borders, and I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, nobody that is an American citizen should want these loose borders.
Right.
If you are an immigrant whose family you want to come over, then we should have a better process to get people here. Whoever it is, from whatever country. I'm not against immigration at all. My grandparents and my great-grandparents immigrated here from Italy and Denmark, and God bless America. But there was a process.
Right.
And this open border stuff is killing our kids.
Yeah. It is. We did a podcast, I want to say a year ago, with a young lady who's an influencer, and she's married to a Marine. She's like 27 years old. And here's this 27-year-old kid, right, who is taking this border thing extremely serious. And she was telling us about what they have found down on the border. Not only are people trying to get out of, out of where they're at to get to us, but the cartels are lining those borders with their employees, so to speak, and threatening these people. If you're not bringing this over, we're going, and I know this is sick stuff, but they will take their babies, they will break their legs and throw them in the Rio Grande River. They will do anything, these cartels, to get their product into the United States. And as a parent, I could just imagine what those parents are going through. If somebody made me that comment or said they were going to do that to my child, hell, I'd shove everything up my butt too to get it over here to save my kid.
Do you know why they're fearful? Because they see it happen.
Right.
They see it happen. I have a friend who's a reporter for Fox, a young kid, and I know him well, and he reports consistently on what goes on at the border. And he tells me, off the record, Lisa, when we film it and we show it and we report on it, it doesn't, even the photos, even the videos, doesn't show what's happening. We can't capture it. We can't show. When you sit there and you watch the people coming over the river, you see the abuse of the people. He said that some of it we can't even air because you just, sometimes you just, you see a beautiful sunset and you can take a picture of it, but it just doesn't register.
Yeah, right.
It's the same thing of what's going on at the border. It's absolutely atrocious and it needs to stop.
Yeah, it's pretty tough when we got to fight something that's not on our soil, too, at the same time.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't imagine that process of what you folks face on a daily basis. Like you were saying, people that come over, end up in the system, let's say they get arrested and there's no documentation on them whatsoever. Then what do you do, especially with our laws now?
Right. Well, that's a whole nother subject of, how we, especially now during COVID, it's even become more challenging. Before COVID, we had overcrowded jails and overcrowded prisons. And now we have a government in California where we have a governor who says we need to close prisons. When in actuality, the most politically incorrect thing you can say in the state of California as an elected official is that we need to build more prisons. And I've said it over and over and over, and I'll continue to say it. We have more people. We have more criminals. We have, the population increases. You need more grocery stores. You need more hospitals. You need more prisons. Yeah. Does anyone like to send people to prison? Of course not. But if you don't have the capacity to house people who continually break the law, you're going to have anarchy. Anarchy. So that's why we are where we are. So not only has COVID exacerbated it, but the politics is really the issue here in California because, everybody wants to blame law enforcement officers and, we have this or we have that or the jail messed up or the cops messed up or the DA messed up. But that's not what it is. It's the politics and the culture that we live in from Sacramento, where we have this society that we are doing the best we can every single day to juggle. And whether it's Fresno County or, Tulare County just had a complete debacle down there.
Right.
And really, it's not a fault of a person, in my humble opinion. It's the fault of a system.
Yeah.
And without people watching it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people slip out that shouldn't slip out. And it's because we have such a stress every day of keeping the right people in the few beds that we have.
Yeah.
That it's an overwhelming, daunting task.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about. I want to start with the Narcan and what you're seeing with drug dealers, drug runners, and what they're doing with the Narcan. I think everybody needs to hear this one.
Yeah. So we just recently had a case where we had an overdose, and we had got some cooperation, and this particular person that was selling these drugs not only sold the M30 pills, the fentanyl pills, but he also gave my victim Narcan. And to me, that just shows that this particular person who was selling this stuff knew that this was going to cause that person's overdose or possible death, which was kind of mind-boggling to me. So now the drug dealers are actually giving the Narcan to the people that they're supplying. And that's just it's taking it to another level. And that just shows the intent of these particular people, that they'll do anything, not only to sell this stuff, but they're also telling the person that they're selling it to, just be careful because this might happen.
It's a lethal poisoning. Right. And they know it.
Right.
Yeah. When Flindt mentioned that to me, I then asked, because of the law, my understanding, first time, okay, slap on the wrist, but sign this paper. Is that almost like an admittance then? Like, can we avoid that sign off?
We actually don't have that law in California for fentanyl. We have it for drunk driving.
Right.
We have a warning that's given to people when they are convicted of a drunk driving case that says, if you do this behavior again, it's inherently dangerous to human life, and you can and will be prosecuted for murder if you are involved in another drunk driving accident that eventually kills someone. And we have tried, people have tried, I have tried, we have tried to push this through Sacramento, through the Assembly and through the Senate, and the public safety committees in both the Assembly and the Senate have put the kibosh on it both times. And there's been a senator down in Southern California who sponsored a bill called Alexandra's Law. And, many of us have supported it and tried to push it through, but the left of the left won't hear it. They just won't hear of passing laws that will increase the number of people who go to prison. Because the overarching theory for these politicians is to close prisons. So they don't want to pass laws that are going to increase the prison population.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care. and their politics and the people who feed their political coffers are more important to them than the lives of the citizens they represent. And that's why it's just despicable what's going on up in
It
Sacramento.
loses all pragmatic nature.
No common
whatsoever.
sense at all.
Right, right. So where do you guys think that these drug cartels, the drug runners, are getting their Narcan? Because we give out Narcan for free here. So what we're starting to do here at Payne is to get people's information if we don't know them. Getting a copy of their driver's license, getting all their information, and we're only going to give out 2 boxes per person, because it seems like they're either sending their people in to organizations like ours to get it, or they could even be forming nonprofits themselves and making that connection directly with the Narcan people to get their supplies in. Have you seen anything like that?
I do not know where they're getting it from, to be honest with you, Flindt. I know they're getting their hands on it, and where they're getting it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Flindt, I mean, you're very well aware of how addicts work. And,
yeah.
When people overdose, they are given Narcan. Their parents are given Narcan if they're minors. And oftentimes, I think sometimes, and this is just speculation, it wouldn't be out of the realm if they would sell the, the people who are getting it from a good source, an ethical source, or selling it back to the drug dealers, for drugs.
Sure.
That's a possibility. There's always also the possibility, that sometimes there are people that work in healthcare, just like that work in the law, just like that work in law enforcement or churches that
or even treatment
don't have the best ethics. Treatment facilities that are not ethical, and so they find a way. They find a way, just like they find a way to find everything else.
Yeah. Look, I was one of those guys. Okay? I was one of it. If there was an angle, I was working it, and I was doing it. But it still ceases to amaze me, the lengths that the addict and the drug dealer will go to for us to get our drugs to do whatever it takes, And
we live in the Gordon Gekko Society. Wasn't that the Michael Douglas character
Yes.
that said greed is good?
Oh yeah,
Wall Street. Yeah.
Greed is good,
Yeah.
right? That's the American way. Greed is good.
Right.
Nothing is ever enough.
Right.
We always want more. And if you were to ask anybody, why do you sell drugs? Why do you push drugs? Why do you run drugs?
money.
Yeah.
It always
all
comes down
money.
to it.
Yep.
It's
And
all
by the way,
money.
this is big money. This
Huge
is
money.
this isn't nickels and dimes. I mean, this is big time money. And again, if I don't even know if there's an end to this. I mean, I sit back on so many days and I go, am I just trying to sweep the ocean back with a broom here? Because and I'm sure you guys have to feel like that at some point too. But when I hear of the Jim Uvinos and the good stuff that you guys are doing and we're doing, I mean, there's that hope. There's that light of hope that I see that keeps me going every day. And it's got to keep you guys going as well. I mean, I think we're doing things here in Fresno County that other counties aren't doing.
No.
We've had people on a national level say that Fresno's the model. Which for
isn't that great
me
news?
is like, wow, that's super cool.
Yeah.
You know, we've had people say that Fresno is the model. Senator Feinstein went on the floor of the U.S. Senate and said Fresno was the model many years ago for human trafficking,
Right.
Education and awareness and prosecution. And so that was a big compliment to us. And I think now that you know, Dino's gotten me involved and we've partnered with people in the private sector as well, we are also serving as a model for the nation. I know the DEA here in Fresno has been very proud of some of the work we're doing here in Fresno has been featured in their newsletter, if you will, that goes out to all the DEA agents all over the world.
Right.
And the collaboration that we have with the federal prosecutors, the state prosecutors, and even our Cal DOJ, you know, that is sort of dominated by that political wing. There's still a lot of really good people that work at Cal DOJ that help us.
Right.
And we have a new sheriff coming in Fresno who is extremely aware of the issues surrounding fentanyl that's
Right.
now starting to leak out into the county areas where maybe before it wasn't present. So we're really excited about bringing Zanoni on to this team. And we have a new police chief. Well, he's
Right.
not so new anymore. He's been
Right.
here almost for
He's
2
great.
years.
I love Chief
And
Ballerano.
I had a meeting with him yesterday and a new supervisor from the DEA that was very encouraging about some things that projects that we're going to be able to put together.
Is fentanyl going anywhere? No.
No, it's not.
There's just too much money to be made in it. You see the seizures that we're seeing across the country, right? That's just the seizures that we know about. Fentanyl is not going anywhere. I believe it's going to replace other drugs like heroin. I believe heroin's going to be obsolete here in the next 2 years. And then the addiction part of it, right? People are going to need to seek out fentanyl. Right. Only thing we can do is hopefully slow the momentum down of our overdoses that we're seeing, the overdose deaths that we're seeing, and just get the message out that way, and hopefully get more stricter laws, right, to have more penalties for people that get caught with this stuff is going to help. But fentanyl is not going anywhere. They're going to actually make a stronger fentanyl, and what we're hearing now is they're making fentanyl that actually has no effects on Narcan. So we're seeing carfentanil. We're seeing things like xylazine and nilazine, to where they're putting this stuff in the fentanyl, and it has no reverse effects with Narcan.
Right.
And that's the scary part about it, right? How are you gonna reverse the effects when you get something like this?
Right.
So it's going to be a bigger problem.
And the average person that I talk to, again, I'm a mom before I'm anything else, so I have a lot of mom friends and parent friends, and they say, Lisa, why do drug dealers want to sell a drug that's going to kill people? I said, because for every 10,000 pills they sell, I'm making these numbers up, I don't know what the numbers are, but for the thousands of pills they sell, only one person dies, right? It's just, you just don't know who's going to get that hot pill, right? Or how that hot pill might affect somebody. One person could take a pill that's hot and they might just overdose, and the other person might die. You don't know. So the risk reward for the dealer is a no-brainer, right? Mm-hmm. The risk reward for the user is deadly. And you just don't know. And this is the thing, I think, that we as Americans, we love stats. Everybody loves stats. If you ever hear Lisa Smittcamp speak extemporaneously or from a sheet, which I very rarely do, even when I write them, I don't read them, you will get very few stats.
Right.
You know why? Because I don't believe them.
Right.
The stats are only as good as the information that is put into them. So if you were to survey 10,000 high school students and you said, here's an anonymous survey, go on SurveyMonkey or whatever they do, and fill this out. Do you use drugs? Do you smoke marijuana? Da-da. Most of them are going to lie because they're going to think, oh my God, my parents are going to see it. This is a setup, whatever. Okay, so we'll do it here. You can just do this. I'm not going to do that. People don't give accurate information. So all those stats that we have, they're fine for guidelines. But the bottom line at the end of the day, until people in this country, and I don't care if you're religious or you're not, or you believe in God, or you believe in Buddha, or you believe in nothing. If you believe in butterflies, I don't care. People have to change their moral compass.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We have lost our way as Americans. We don't value family. We don't value hard work. We don't value friendships. We live in this everybody gets a sticker. Don't be mean to people. Don't hurt people's feelings.
Everybody gets a participation trophy.
Everybody's a winner. Well, you're not.
Right.
When we're driving down the street, my kids say to me, Mom, please don't sing. Mom, don't sing.
Right.
I can't sing. I can't knit. I don't look good in a bathing suit. But you know what? I am passionate about criminal justice. I'm passionate about kids. I can speak. I can talk till the cows come home. That's really all I'm good at. Right. And you know what? We have to get back to that society to say, you know what? I'm good at digging ditches.
Right.
I'm good at being an electrician. I'm good at painting pictures. I'm not good at everything. I'm not going to drive. Not everybody has to drive a Porsche.
Right.
Not everybody has to have a diamond ring. We need to get back to the place in our country where we can say, like, my dad was a pipe fitter.
Right.
My mom was a bookkeeper. And who would have ever thought they would have given birth to somebody who could be the district attorney? I mean, there's J-Lo from the block. There's Lisa from the street I'm not going to say because my mom still lives there. But we have to change our moral compass in this country to go back to values that mattered, that built the country. And until we do that, fentanyl is going to reign.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to that stat thing that you said, and you're absolutely right. I never give a lot of stats when I'm speaking, but this is the stat that I will use. There was a survey done a couple of years ago where 25% of high school student athletes admitted to using a narcotic painkiller for non-medical reasons within the past year.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But here's my point to that. How many of those kids didn't raise their hand? How many didn't admit
Double it, Flindt.
Double it, triple it maybe.
Yeah.
So that stat is not accurate either.
Yep.
So you're right on the stats. And the moral compass thing, my God, I couldn't agree with you more on that. If we are in such turmoil right now, every which way we look. Again, I don't mean to be the downer here, but I just don't know how we're going to pull our asses out of this thing. I really don't know. But I think we all have that mentality of we save one at a time.
Yep. That's all we can do.
One at a time. That's all we can do.
Something I always say is I get involved a little bit with Los Angeles and San Francisco now because of the horrendous district attorneys they have there. But otherwise, I stay here. I like to stay
calling
here.
it like it is.
She calls it just like it is.
Because we can't fix the world.
Right.
But Fresno is still a community that is small enough that we can dictate who we are.
Yeah.
And if I can have a small part of that, then I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think it's important, one of the things that you brought up and that I see and is frustrating to me as a parent with 2 teenagers now, goodness, is that sense of community is gone. Had an issue at the park. One of the kids went up to the mom, not my kid. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. But now we can't say anything. People don't. It's gotten this not my kid mentality. Well, I'm sorry. Your kid door dashed and went and hid and then threw some chips towards us, the wood chips. I'm just letting you know because it's, your job to hit, not my kid.
That's right.
Ma'am, here's my camera.
Yep.
You want to see? It's on my camera.
Yep.
And it's like people don't want to have that mentality when I was growing up as it takes a village.
Yep.
My mom, thank you, Elisa.
Yeah.
I didn't know Jason was doing that.
Yep.
Let's get him in order now. And it's gone away. Too
we
much
need
of
to
the,
change back to that way.
Right.
Like you and I argue, you're not their friend.
Right.
I have this all the time with my 2.
Yep.
I'm not your friend. I'm your parent.
Yep.
When you get older, we will become more like peers. It'll be up to you. But I'm not your friend.
We see it in so many different aspects of the world, right? We see it with some of the, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of parents and moms who over-sexualize their daughters.
Oh,
right?
good God,
We're
yes.
talking about human trafficking issues and why girls are so promiscuous. In our day, you as a young lady, you had to be afraid of the man who wanted you to try to do something sexually that you weren't ready for. Guess what? Today, lock up your boys. Right. Because the young teenage girls are so over-sexualized.
Yes,
and then a lot of that behavior, when it continues, to go on, it causes lower self-esteem, it causes more sexual behavior, and that is another thing that leads to anxiety, depression, which then leads to drug
potential
use.
drug use,
right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, it's just all a slippery slope. But, you see these mothers who are encouraging their 13, 14, 15-year-old girls to dress like they're prostitutes.
Right.
These prom dresses.
Oh, God.
I mean, and these are some people that I know. They're my dear friends. I look at these pictures, from these events and these parties. It's unbelievable.
It's almost disgusting.
Micro dresses, in 15
really
and
is.
16-year-olds.
Right.
And it's it really is. It's the parents. I don't believe that children are born like this. They're allowed.
Yeah.
To go down these roads, and it's really something we have to address as a city, as a county, and as a nation.
Yeah. And I get asked all the time, why do kids start using drugs? And one of my first responses is because you as the parent are trying to or want them to be what you want them to be instead of what they want to be. Now, a kid really is not going to make that determination. You're going to change majors 3 times, right? But you have to give them that freedom to do that. At least that's my opinion. I mean, how many parents have I dealt with over the years that want their kid to be the starting first baseman for, Clovis West baseball team, and the kid doesn't have any baseball ability at all.
Right.
Right? I mean, they think he's already going to sign a 4-year deal with the San Francisco Giants, whatever it is. And all of a sudden that kid feels that kind of pressure.
Sure.
And now he's walking around campus and he's pissed off and some friend goes, here, man, try one of these because it's going to make your parents just disappear.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
or
what
you want to hit the ball better? Hey.
That's the beginning of it. These kids go to school, they fail a test, they didn't make the baseball team and they make the football team. These predators at these schools see this.
Yeah,
and that's the opportune moment to get at these vulnerable kids to start either vaping or using a pill or whatever it might be, and that's where it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I was watching that documentary Varsity Blues. I don't know if you ever saw that. And those 2 kids that are on there that were getting ready to find out if they were accepted to this university of choice, and both of them didn't. And they both looked like they were going to have a nuclear meltdown right there on camera. There was no plan B. There was no, oh, it's okay. You can go to a city college and get your GED out of the way and then transfer to a 4-year college. No, it was none of that. My God, they went ballistic. And my first reaction was, those are the type of kids that are going to be walking through my door 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they don't know they don't know how to handle any type of pressure like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
or
just,
their parents have just fixed everything for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the world. I have had 2 teenagers, one going to college and one still in high school, and they both have jobs. And people say to me, "Your kids work?"
right.
Wow, how did you get them to work?
Hell yeah.
And I say, well, I pay for their clothes and we pay for their stuff, but like they work because their mother works and their father works. And if we do anything in our house, it's work. Yeah, we don't do everything perfectly, but we work really hard. And, my daughter worked in a restaurant where there was a lot of raw fish. And she would come home with this terrible, shoes with all kinds of sushi all over the place. And, people that were her peers and my peers were astonished that she worked in a manual labor job. And I just look at them and shake my head. Right. And say, I don't care if your kid walks the neighbor's dog or takes out the trash for everyone on the block. There was a kid on our block one time who was 8 years old, and he would ask us if we would pay him $1 to take out our trash cans. I'm like, $1? That's right. I'll pay you $5 to take him out and $5 to bring him in because I forget.
On a Sunday night when I don't want to take those garbage cans out, send them over to my house.
There's all kinds of things that kids can do. Yeah. They don't have to go get a job. There's, it's not a cool thing to be a grocery bagger anymore like it was when we were kids, or deliver the Fresno Bee. Kids don't work. Yeah. Their parents don't. They need to sleep in, and they don't make them do yard work. Who on the north end of Fresno doesn't have a cleaning lady and a gardener, right? There's nothing wrong. We have a gardener, but my kids are out in the garden. They complain, they yell, honestly, they do. One time my son got in trouble, and my husband made him dig holes. And he thought they were going to plant trees, and he said, fill them up.
Fill them back up again. I love that one.
So parents have to start to parent.
Yeah, they do.
Got to start to parent.
We have to be more involved with our kids. These phones make kids lazy, right? You can do whatever you want on these phones. You can order whatever you want on these phones. I kind of use the term like back in the days where Christmas was rolling around and you as parents, hey, what do you want from Toys R Us? Let's go to Toys R Us and let's pick out some toys, right? Sure. That was kind of like a thing where a family bonding type thing, right? We don't have that anymore, right? Where you look forward to Christmas and you look forward to picking out your toys. Now everything's done. Hey, well, what do you want for Christmas? Yeah. Go on whatever and order up your toys or whatever. That's the kind of thing we're talking about, getting back involved with your kids 24/7, knowing what they're doing, knowing who their friends are, not making them lazy through these damn phones.
Just the basics.
Getting back to the basics.
And it's so critical for parents to know who their friends are. It's critical for these parents to check their kids' phones. Parents, you own the phone.
Yeah.
You're paying for that phone. You have every right. Your kids don't have rights when they're underage and living in your house. And even if they're overage and they're living in your house, that's your house. That's your rules. Check that damn phone.
And the thing is that even parents who are engaged, they still have the risk that their kids are going to go sideways. It's that one time, that one day, that one friend, that one breakup, that one bad test. I tell my 15-year-old that all the time. You're not done. Right. Just because your mom is the DA and just because you know about fentanyl and you know about marijuana doesn't mean you're not going to be tempted. Right. And it could be my kid any day. The older one's going off to college. Who knows what's going to happen to her? She's been an angel thus far, but who knows what boyfriend she's going to get? Who knows how the pressure of being away is going to affect her mental health? We always have to be on. We always have to be engaged, and we always have to pray or hope that it's not going to be our kids who fall victim to that. Right. And if you are paying attention, you're less likely, but it doesn't mean you're immune at all.
Right. Yeah. And that's the other thing. it can happen to anybody's kid. It's just not the parent that can't or won't control their child.
Of course
It's not in that neighborhood any longer. It's in every neighborhood. Doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is. Doesn't matter what your faith is. Doesn't matter that you go to church every Sunday. Doesn't matter that they're playing first base on Clovis West baseball team.
And it happens to good parents.
All
it happens to
the
good
time.
kids.
I can't tell
That
you how
stigma
many.
has to go away, that this only happens to negligent parents or bad parents or
Right.
parents who aren't engaged, because it happens to those too. As Dino's saying, if you do engage and you are in the phone and you can go too far with that too,
Sure.
because you have to have your, there's a fine balance. You don't want them to not learn how to be responsible on their own. And I say, people ask me all the time, oh, what do you think about this or that? I said, don't come to me for parenting advice, because I'm just winging it every day. We're all winging it.
Well, there's no manual.
You have to do what's best for your kid. The way I parented the older one is not how I parent
Right.
the younger one, and how I parent the bonus kid is not how I parent the other two.
Right.
And it's every day it's a battle. Every day it's a struggle to keep them on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And I think that if we start to admit that it's not easy, and we have that sense of community, and we share with each other. Dino and I talk about our boys all the time. We try to get them together because they're, it's good for mine. He's a little bit older. They both play baseball, to be my guy to be the role model, and his, got his one to be around the kids that are maybe a year older than him. And, we try to do that, connect yourself with people who are of the same value system as you, of the same, that your kids have the same interests, whether it's theater or music or sports or even gaming. There's a lot of kids that aren't scholar athletes or whatever, that they have other things they do. Embrace that, and
Absolutely embrace it.
run with it.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Where do we go from here, guys, as a city and a county and as a valley? What's our next move? Is there something that we're all looking at for the future here as far as promoting, the I don't want to say promoting the fentanyl crisis, that's the wrong thing to say, but in attacking this issue that we've got? What's coming next?
I would say just keep the pedal to the metal and keep doing what we're doing. Like Lisa said, we set the standard here in Fresno, all over the country, and they're modeling everything we do. I get calls constantly. What are you doing in Fresno? We want to set up the F.O.R.T team in our particular area. Keep getting out, educating the public, educating the kids, educating the schools, showing our the documentary.
This guy's going all over the nation to speak.
know.
They don't call me that
Yeah.
often, but they call him. I mean, he's been to Nashville and all kinds of different places to speak, to set up the model, right?
Great.
To do the
God,
model.
that's fantastic.
And I think that's important. I am actually in negotiations and discussions right now with Dean's boss, Chief Balderrama, and our good partner over at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Kim Sanchez, where we're going to start to have a yearly summit for law enforcement out at the Fresno PD Training Center, and it's like a hot topic, right? We're going to just bring the feds. Because we have such great partnerships with DEA and Homeland Security and the FBI, together with the locals, the state and locals, and we're gonna have a summit every year. We're gonna try to do it this year in November, and of course the topic this year has to be fentanyl.
Sure.
And so we're hoping to have a 2-day summit, one to train law enforcement on all the new things, because it changes every day.
Yeah.
It changes, all the trends change, how they're selling, how they're receiving, what it looks like.
Right.
And then another day for community partners, health care, and
I was just going to say, because
addictive recoveries and all that
right,
kind of
because
stuff.
I think it's important for law enforcement personnel to know about treatment,
Right.
and
vice versa.
and vice versa. You bet.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to doing that, to setting now, Chief Balderrama's been here for almost 2 years. He's got his sea legs now. He knows the players. He knows the people. We have, formed good relationships. The relationship between Fresno PD and DEA is really working well.
Right.
We have some new supervisors in for Homeland Security and DEA that are really helpful to us.
Right.
And we are building, those bridges to be even stronger and, stronger and longer than they are now. And we're hopeful that we can really do some good things in this community.
You bet. You
Excellent
bet.
to hear. Thank goodness.
Jason, what do you got for us? Anything?
Flindt, after this conversation, I'm going to go back to the thing I always say. There's no outside solutions to inside problems.
That's it.
If we just worked on ourselves, things would be a lot better off.
So
Looking
true.
for that validation. But
So
thank you.
true.
This has been a real honor and pleasure to meet you both and get the knowledge. I want to do this again down the line for sure.
Absolutely, guys. Again, you're my favorites. You always have been and always will be. These guys fight harder than anybody I've ever met, and we appreciate you so much. Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
and
You're
we're
welcome.
going to keep doing this. We're not going to give up.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or check us out online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media at Pain Nonprofit. Please subscribe to the podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts. To donate, please click the link in the description and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
This podcast contains the views and opinions of hosts and their guests to the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only. And because each person is sharing their unique perspective, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Privacy is of the utmost importance to us. For those wishing anonymity, people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect confidentiality at the request of certain guests. This website or podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. If you find any errors in any of the content of this podcast or blogs, please send a message through the contact page.